Alright, I'm back. I changed the encoder back to the video game one because I was getting encoder errors last episode. But anyway, this is Stop Giving Killing Games by moistcritikal. I've heard of this initiative. In fact, I wrote a preamble, I would guess I could say, a Word doc about how video games should work in the United States, Senate to or President Elon Musk, my representatives, and my senator, and governor in the state that I live in. I wrote about the crew, microtransactions, physical media. If anyone ever wants me to make that public, I can. It's an official Word doc that I made that I really would love the United States to implement, but I never got any responses back. But I did take the initiative to fully do that. So I do know a lot about this topic, but I was sent this a couple times, so I'm pretty excited to see it. And lo and behold, I fully support the Stop Killing Games initiative, and really wish it was approved.
Tough guy. Feeling lucky? Yeah, that's right. Spirit fingers. Do you know why? Because it's been about 30 hours since I last slept, and I've done 3 different intros, all of which crash and burned, and I am off my gourd, so now I'm going wacko mode. But, even in my sleep-deprived state, I am still lucid enough to recognize how cattywampus the AAA gaming space has become. Like, the gaming industry has so many things that I have bitched and moaned about. Probably the biggest practice that I've been most vocal about, not exactly shy on, is the topic of you will own nothing and be happy. The Ubisoft motto. God rest that company's soul. What a pile of dog shit. But it's not just Ubisoft. That has become a prevalent business strategy across the gaming industry. You will own nothing. You will be happy.
If you don't know why, I think a lot of people in Rumble probably that watch this won't know why. Ubisoft is a pile of dog shit because, let's say if you get a copy of Assassin's Creed out, like first Assassin's Creed Shadows was a pile of dog shit. But if you get a copy of Assassin's Creed Shadows out and the servers on PlayStation or whatever go down, your copy's worthless because it needs to be online to play it. So, or download it. So, dog shit. And that was something in the Word doc that I wrote that I think the United States needs to change. I think version 1.0 of any game should be on the disc or cartridge that you buy.
You're basically, you come away with the idea of ownership of whatever games you purchase. I've worn this topic out more than a fleshlight in a frat house, but it is something I am very passionate about. The gaming industry is getting away with more and more garbage where they'll take a shit in your mouth and you're expected to thank them for adding some flavor to your taste buds. It's terrible. And there is an initiative that has been aiming to fight back against a lot of these practices that I think really need some big overhaul. And it's an initiative that I think a lot of you are probably very familiar with. It's called Stop Killing Games. And I've followed it since its inception. I've talked about it on stream quite a few times, though this is my first video going over it. And I regret that now because I see it wasn't going as well as I thought it was. Admittedly, I didn't follow how successful the initiative was, only that it was aiming to do good for consumers, and that it was taking proper steps legally to get there, and it was going through all of the right channels. And now today I watched a video from the guy that's spearheading this. His name is Ross. He posted a video called The End of Stop Killing Games where he's giving an update on where everything's at and how it's kind of at the finish line here with a lot of failure to show for it with only a few other chances to fight back. Now before getting into the weeds on the topic, I want to get this in the beginning because I imagine the vast majority of people won't watch the whole thing. I'm putting a link to the full video on Stop Killing Games as well as a link to where you'd go to help support the Stop Killing Games.
In the description, I will put all these links because I think it's really good that we support this. I honestly am a wholehearted believer. In fact, I almost wanted to run politically in my state just to get video games in a better state in the United States because I think they are currently in the shitter. We own and do nothing for consumers' rights in our country of the United States. I don't know, maybe one day, I can mark my words on this, maybe one day I'll run for a senator and you can come back and tell me, told you so. just so I can get video games fixed.
Initiative, because there's only a little bit of time left for the most important parts of it now that it's at the end. So if you know what the movement is and want to support it but didn't know where, the resources are in the description, or if you want to get it right from like the source, I have a link to his video. But I want to go into it myself here because it is a topic that I do feel very strongly about. But for those that don't know anything about Stop Killing Games, I'm going to let him explain it in his own words, so that way you can get an actual, correct, informed explanation of what the initiative is. And the reason I say it like that, kind of like fucking all, pinky out, snooty, is because a lot of people don't even really know what this is because of people like Pirate Software completely misrepresenting what the initiative was.
As a refresher, Stop Killing Games is a consumer movement to stop publishers from effectively destroying video games they have already sold to customers.
I'll pause right there. The simplest, bare bones, birthday suit, butt-ass naked explanation for what this is. Stop destroying things that people have paid money to own. I think that is a very understandable, very reasonable take. Very agreeable. Now I want to quickly jump to a different spot in this video because I think it's important to have this in the beginning because it's something a lot of people have heard that comes from someone that is just wrong about it. It's the Pirate Software portion. Ross is addressing the video Pirate Software made many months ago. Ross even says that he didn't plan on doing that because he didn't want to be seen as using this for drama farming because it would start to make the movement look less of like a legitimate initiative and more of just like drama slop content.
Should have did it. Should have made it 10 months ago. We would have got there already.
Type thing. But he finally starts talking about Pirate Software here because it's at the end of the life cycle of this initiative and it's not looking promising, so he's willing to do anything to try and set the record straight and hopefully start getting more momentum back to the movement because the damage Pirate Software did to it through his video was substantial.
This video came out right as we were building momentum, then except for one boost in Germany, the signatures started drying up like clockwork. Thor does not understand what Stop Killing Games is. Here it is in his words.
So for those who don't understand, the Stop Killing Games initiatives is basically we don't want single player.
I'm going to be honest. I've watched his whole video on this, Thor's, and he comes off as a prick this whole video because he doesn't understand what Stop Killing Games is. He doesn't understand what it's for. He talked about single player and multiplayer and turning a multiplayer into single player games. I don't know, a bunch of retard takes that obviously anyone that knows anything about Stop Killing Games and what it's for and the consumer portion of it would automatically agree and say that Thor is in the wrong about, and he doesn't even know half of the crap he's talking about. In fact, people that say that it's from a developer point of view that he's defending here, it's not even fully the case. If you don't know, I have made video games before. I've been on teams of making video games before. I have a degree in software engineering and computer science. I've worked with code plenty of times, and the companies would just make an effort to preemptively know that this is coming, so then the game can come out and know that they'll have to do this later on, so they would make it originally. And in fact, they would give the company, like the coders and the money and jobs to make this happen. It's only a benefit to everyone. So when he wrote this, it pissed me off when he made, excuse me, I'm sick still, when he made this video. He's just an ass throughout the whole video.
Games
No.
to have DRM that the developers can turn off and thus render the single player games inactive anymore. This is what they want to change. They need to be specific that they're talking about single-player games that do not need a server to support them.
No.
And as much as they want it to be about specifically games where it is a single-player game that has always online functionality, it would impact every live service game that exists. Instead of just targeting single-player, always online games.
No,
So
that's not what it is.
completely
Stop Killing
ruined
Games
the thing.
includes single-player games, but nothing about it is specific to them. He completely made that up, and I have no idea where he got that impression. It's the first line on the website. Stop Killing Games is a consumer movement started to challenge the legality of publishers destroying video games they have sold to customers. But the movement includes all this stuff from earlier, and he was mostly talking about the initiative.
He didn't even get the Cliff Notes summary right. He missed all the QTEs and got the bad
that's what
ending
I'm
on
saying.
understanding the initiative from the jump here. Ross is correct. This has nothing to do with just single-player only games that require an online connection, that when the online connection is severed, you lose access to the game. Like, yeah, that is included in all of this, but that's not like what the whole movement is about. And for some reason, Pirate Software is stun-locked on that, like fixated, as if that is the actual like meat and potatoes of Stop Killing Games. They need to be more specific in their language about it being single-player, always online connectivity games. When that's just not what it's about. Like, they're not being specific about that because that is not what they are specifically targeting. It is about the whole practice of destroying games that consumers have already purchased and having no end-of-life plans for games that are being sunset. So, for example, The Crew. The Crew is an example everyone is going to reference and talk about because Ubisoft is still currently in a lawsuit battling against it for what?
Ubisoft needs to lose this lawsuit. It's not a want, they need to lose it.
Happened with this game. I've yapped about it quite a bit, so I'm not just going to regurgitate that. I'm sure a lot of you already know the story about it. But basically, you buy The Crew, Ubisoft pulls the plug on the servers, you can't play The Crew anymore, now it's just an old wet dream of what once was. And they are facing a lawsuit, and while this is in the umbrella of Stop Killing Games, it is not the only thing Stop Killing Games is referencing when it comes to this practice. Pirate Software is so hung up on it being single-player games that people lose access to, when that is a component of it, but not the entire focus.
Well, the short version is the initiative is about requiring publishers to have end-of-life plans for games they've sold to customers in the future. So when they shut them down, customers can continue running them without their support. So that's one thing Thor doesn't understand, but he also seems to think this is about converting multiplayer games to single-player.
Transitioning an entire multiplayer server-side game into a single-player video game, which means rebalancing the entire experience.
Yeah, once again, retard take. What they're asking is to surrender the server status, basically, so a community or individual can make a community server or a private server, and how do you say it? Can make their own personal server for people that they care about. They would have to surrender something that allows people to do that. They wouldn't necessarily have to do it themselves, and they wouldn't have to make it a single-player game.
It's around single player, rebuilding everything in the entire game. How are you going to do that with Final Fantasy XIV? You're just going to make all the raids soloable? Imagine the day that World of Warcraft shuts down, and suddenly you have to make it a single-player game for every individual that ever bought the game. That's what they're asking for.
No.
Because they would have to sunset live service games as a single-player experience. The idea that suddenly you need to make every single live service game playable single-player offline? No, dude.
Correct. No.
This part is more confusing than Finnegan's Wake, because nowhere in anything on Stop Killing Games has this even been like a talking point from anyone besides Pirate Software. I don't know where he pieced this puzzle together. Like I don't get it. Like, if I'm gonna try and like really reach here and give like a charitable explanation for this take, maybe he's extrapolating based on the idea that if publishers have to have end-of-life plans for their games, that includes MMOs, where once the game is getting sunset, you're pulling the plug on it. You would then need to turn the game over to the community in a playable state, an accessible state, like give the code to them. Thus, it'd turn it into a single-player experience, so the onus would be on the developers to rebalance their game to be a single-player experience for them? I guess. I have no idea. That still just doesn't make any sense, but maybe that's the tree he's barking up with that thought process. I really don't know, because Stop Killing Games at no point ever says any of these multiplayer games need to be converted to single player. That really is outlandish. And the more I think about it, like, the more nonsensical it becomes, because even in Pirate Software's hypothetical fanfic there, why would the developers need to rebalance the game? They would just turn over the code to the community and just it'd be in that.
And that's what it's requesting. Basically, we would take the dev software, make it unpatchable, like uneditable, right? The code that is copyrighted, take that out, and they would have to fill it in with what they have and use that.
They're no longer responsible for balancing the game. That's the whole point. They're not indefinitely supporting it. They would just be responsible of leaving the game in an accessible state to the community while they would shut down the servers on their end. Like, they wouldn't need to go back through with a whole development team and, like, you know, tweak the game to be single-player compatible. It just doesn't make sense. Like, I really do not understand that.
I don't know what he was
But
thinking.
apparently a lot of people latched onto that talking point from Pirate Software as something that Stop Killing Games was asking for and how unreasonable it was. Which, if that's what Stop Killing Games was asking for, it would be unreasonable. But that's not what it's asking for.
Nowhere in there does it say that it's directly targeting always online single-player games.
Oh, he's so close. He's so close to getting it.
It is vague, and because of that, it will impact.
He never has that light bulb moment. Well, he is correct in that statement. It's almost as if that's not what the initiative is asking for.
I know this part is once again just reinforcing that he doesn't know what the Stop Killing Games movement is about, but I have to just show you this because it is so fascinating, because he himself literally calls out that Stop Killing Games at no point explicitly mentions single-player always-online games or anything like that. And for some reason, instead of following the breadcrumbs that would naturally lead him to the conclusion of, oh, maybe I misunderstood, maybe, because it's absent here, that's not what this is actually about. Instead, he uses it as a criticism against the Stop Killing Games initiative entirely, saying it's just too vague, it's way too vague. The reason it is not explicitly stated there is because that is not what the whole initiative is about. It is not specifically targeting that thing that you keep saying that it is. I don't know how that never clicked.
But those were his streams with a smaller audience. What does he say in his big YouTube video with over 1 million views that he had time to research?
If we're trying to kill off the practice of developers putting together a live service game, pitching it as a single-player experience, and then taking away support in the future.
Now he's changed it again and is making up how it's about single-player games are advertised. What is he doing?
It needs to be specific about the business practice it's trying to defeat, which is specifically...
I think he was misconstruing it and talking only about the crew, but it's not. It's about any game, and it doesn't require it to be single player. I don't understand how he didn't get through this through his thick skull.
Companies that are doing this under the guise of it being a single-player game, but adding online-only functionality that is not necessary and doesn't add any gameplay elements. That's the problem.
No, that's not it at all.
This is a really strong section from Ross here, because the clips that you saw moments ago were from his stream. When he took more time to watch it and digest it, he still came back in that video
Thunderstorm.
misrepresenting it. Like, it never dawned on him. Like, on stream, he could write it off as like, oh, he didn't grasp it at the moment, maybe later on he did. Well, then he made the video where he still was talking about things that are just not what Stop Killing Games was about, and this was the one that really blew up and really started to kind of dismantle the Stop Killing Games momentum.
If we don't like the idea of live service games as a whole, I get it. Don't play live service games then. Don't agree to those terms.
No, he's getting a new thing wrong now. We're not against them
just adding
existing.
garbage to
We're
this.
against them being destroyed with no recourse for the customer.
Pirate Software then goes on to talk about like the business practice of misleading consumers into thinking that what they're buying is a product as opposed to a license to a product, which is a totally separate thing. And then he criticizes
Which is also in that Word doc I was telling you about at the beginning. I think licensure should be how California has it. I know on Rumble people don't even like to mention California, but I think California is right here. Every online website needs to show that it is a license that you're buying, not a product that they can revoke it at any time.
Killing Games for not being specific about that thing that he is bringing up, as opposed to what Stop Killing Games is talking about. So he's using that against them for some reason. And then Ross goes into like the license talk.
Our problem is not with licenses failing to inform people. Blizzard says they can take away your purchase for no reason. That sounds pretty clear to me. Our problem is those terms
Any
are
reason
so
and no
hostile to
reason should be
consumers
illegal.
and the medium that they should be
Illegal.
taken off the table entirely. This needs regulation. Forget video games. If you look at basic commerce for hundreds of years, when you paid money, you either got to keep what you paid for, or if it was a service, you were told when your access ends. The vast majority of online-only games do neither of those.
He's exactly right. That is a huge problem. Now, Pirate Software is correct here about these companies that will mislead consumers through this fraudulent advertising on what you're actually buying, because in a lot of cases, you don't own any of the shit that you are buying. It is pretty much a
If buying isn't owning, then piracy isn't stealing. Words to live by.
rental. You get a permission slip to access the content. That is an issue, and not making it abundantly
be
clear to
revoked.
consumers that what you're that is what you are buying is a problem, and so too is the actual agreements, as Ross demonstrates with Blizzard, where it says they can just completely terminate it for no reason at all. It really does go against the basic idea of commerce entirely. Video games are in a totally different ball game when it comes to that, because half the time you don't realize that you're just buying an admission ticket to a game. You're not actually buying the game. You also don't know how long that's going to last. Again, to go back to Concord, that shit lasted less than a fucking, fucking rainstorm, basically. Like, there is just so many problems. So I don't know why Pirate Software would be so harsh on Stop Killing Games for not addressing specific things that he himself is bringing up, or
I think he's part of the industry, but doesn't understand from a reasonable perspective what they're trying to show. He's part of the gaming industry, but any person that isn't part of a large corporation would even then still agree with this. It's if you are a corporate shill and a scumbag, you would disagree with this.
making up in regards to it. It just doesn't compute. It really is a video that did significant damage to an actually positive initiative that aimed to help consumers in the video game space. All based on his complete misrepresentation of it, which was a complete mess.
If you try to tell me that every studio needs to run their live service game indefinitely or not run one at all, then no one's going to run them.
Oh no! He wheeled out that line about publishers having to support the game forever. He was literally watching the video earlier where it says it won't do that in big letters. That wasn't enough. We just can't stop gamers
Dude,
from going
it
there, even when
literally
we
said it
spell
right
it
in front of
out.
him.
That's the last clip I want to
That's
show
so
from
funny.
this section on the Pirate Software video, but it's a very important one because this is something a lot of people also think the Stop Killing Games initiative is about, where developers, publishers will have to support their games forever. Like, until the fucking heat death of the universe, they'll have to support these games under the initiative. When that is not the case. It is very simply asking that when the game has reached the end of its life cycle, the publishers, developers don't want to work on it any longer, to turn it over to the community to still be in a playable, accessible state so the product can still exist. There is some more nuance, obviously, to how that works, given, like, publisher-developer licensing and...
You ever play Sonic? Sonic Runners, I think, on the app. Well, it was like one of the best Sonic jump games ever. They ended life. They ended the service for it. And then a team took the source code and community and rebuilt it, and you can join a private community server now and still play it. In fact, I did the other day. Yeah, I played on it. It's pretty cool. It's a great phone game, and that's what they're asking you to do. Sega has nothing to do with it. They don't make money off of it. It's just for fun.
A lot of like the code, the binary, that kind of thing. There is a lot at play under the hood there, of course, but it is something that Stop Killing Games isn't naive to, and it is something that is talked about. But I'm not going to dive too deep into it. I encourage you to check more in on it. But this whole belief that it is about endlessly supporting a live service game, even when it makes no sense to do so and it's beyond dead and in the dirt, is ridiculous, because that is not what it is asking for. And a lot of people think that it is. It's not. Pirate Software got that wrong as well. Anyway, I'll stop yapping about it, but as mentioned in the beginning, most of Stop Killing Games hasn't been successful in getting change. And Ross has dedicated so much of his life to this, and it's clearly taken a big toll. Now he's doing everything he can for this last ditch push to try and help. And there are two big things coming up that can do so. And it's what I linked at the very beginning of the at the very beginning of the video about the resources in the description. It's in regards to this.
One is for the UK to sign a government petition to bring this issue before Parliament. Though, keeping it real, I'm not terribly optimistic about this one, since the government response has been a mess by every definition. But the one that has a lot of power, so much so I think it could change the course of gaming history, is the European Citizens Initiative. Now, I said I'm approaching this like a time traveler because with the trajectory we're on, these are both going to fail. Again, this one is crazy powerful, but the hurdle we just couldn't get past was that it requires 1 million signatures from citizens of EU countries. And we've only made it just under halfway. What a lot of people don't realize is that in the EU especially, it's almost a state of lawlessness regarding the practice of game destruction. Is that the vast majority of games with an online requirement say they can be terminated at any time for any reason. Or Blizzard likes to say any or no reason. But according to the EU Commission, that might be a violation of Directive 93/13 EEC, which protects consumers against unfair terms and consumer contracts. So if that term is unfair, that means that part of the contract is null and void.
He goes on to explain how powerful
Should be
that
null
can
and
be
void, 'cause it's,
because of what
how
a
is it
mess
fair
that
to the person
is.
that's buying?
Because there is so much gray area with how the video games currently operate in regards to those protections. It would be a legal headache that would require an analysis of the laws or implementation of new laws that could lead to, hopefully, an improvement when it comes to gaming. So the big hurdle was the signatures, needing 1 million, and currently it's at like 460,000, so it doesn't reach the threshold. I've been very vocal from the very beginning about how little faith I have in petitions, but that's just from the perspective of an American. In America, petitions are more worthless than toilet paper. You're better off just writing what you want on a note to Santa Claus and shipping it to the North Pole than you are doing anything with a petition in this country. I don't know how different it is in the EU. Maybe it really is this powerful there that could lead to substantial...
The difference is in the United States, it's not legally binding, where in the EU, it is. They have to bring it upon their government and implement a change of any kind. It doesn't have to be the exact change stated in the petition, but it does have to coincide with the change of the petition brought before them.
Change and improvement when it comes to games and preservation and all of what we've already talked about. Hopefully, I mean, that's really all that's left for the Stop Killing Games initiative, which sucks, but that's the position that it's in, unfortunately. And I wanted to talk about it because I really want to see something change with the games industry. I've said that so many times recently, but it's in such a sorry state.
Embarrassing.
I mean, I'm talking big budget AAA space. Indies, I think, are absolutely crushing it, absolutely golden right now in the golden age of indie games, but overall,
wait to
in the
play
big
Wu
budget
Chang
games
Fall of
and the way the
Feathers.
industry keeps pushing things, it sucks. So, I wanted to talk about Stop Killing Games here. Hopefully, things can turn around and maybe a huge W's around the corner for the Stop Killing Games initiative. We'll see. But anyway, I want to commend
Well,
Ross for his hard work spearheading all of this for so long. And
I'm very excited. I hope it does pass. I actually got sent another video by moistcritikal here that we'll do next. Probably over the same topic if I had to guess. But yeah, honestly, I think it should pass. Honestly, I fully agree with it and think it is 100% a great initiative that anyone should support. 100%, I back this. I don't live in the EU, but if you do, give it a sign, seriously. It doesn't matter if you're on either stance of the political ladder, this is just good. And if you're too old to understand how video games are helpful, do this for your kids, because one day it will affect them. And I mean, I think this is very important for any consumer rights at all. So give it a sign, seriously. All right, I'll catch you in the next one.